Hi guys, it's Dylan from Bijou Diamond Jewellery in London with another watch video, and today we're taking a look at the new release from this year, Basel 2019, Rolex Yacht-Master 42. Let's go back in time now and look at the history of the Yacht-Master. I'll look very briefly at the history of the Yacht-Master. If you want to look more in depth at this watch, then go check out my Yacht-Master 40 review, where I go much more in detail on the history of the Yacht-Master. But nonetheless, we'll still look at some detail in this video, just not quite as much. If we go back in time now to 1953, when Rolex released the Rolex Submariner. The Submariner was a pretty immediate success with professional divers and people who swam with watches as well. It was fantastically built. It featured a really brilliant water resistance up to 200 meters on one of the models, and later on increased that as well. It was a really rugged watch, and it became not only popular with divers, but later on actually with people who worked in an office or just wanted to wear the watch every single day, because it was so rugged and so hard wearing. So by the late 1960s, Rolex recognized the fact that lots of people were wearing this watch that weren't divers. So they added a date function, still with divers in mind, and the watch still had a focus towards divers. But Rolex were recognizing that this watch was doing well with a much greater, wider audience. So then move on to the 90s, and Rolex wanted to look at a way to revamp the Submariner, give it more of a luxurious feel. Again, recognizing that now at this point in the 90s, majority of the people that bought the Submariner were not divers. So for that reason, they wanted to make it a little bit more luxurious. They wanted to add precious metals to the collection, slicken up the design, make it a little bit more sleek and maybe a bit more dressy than the more rugged tool style watch, utilitarian watch that the Submariner was. So they ended up designing a watch that was totally different to the Submariner. So much so that actually Rolex thought it was too much of a risk to release this watch as the new Submariner and replace the old model. They knew they had so much success with the old Submariner, and they didn't want to risk people not buying that watch anymore. So they continued the production of the current Submariner and that same design, and they introduced this model, the new revamped Submariner, as a new model. And named it the Yacht-Master, which they actually had that name patented a long time before that, before the 90s. They decided to use Yacht-Master because Submariner was for divers, professional divers like the Sea Dweller, etc. And the Yacht-Master was designed for a much more luxurious lifestyle, not quite as harsh environments as the Submariner was built for. So it featured a precious metal case and bracelet, a sleeker design. Just overall much more luxurious looking watch, definitely not, and also polished center links as well. So definitely designed for a much more luxurious environment like a yacht. So the model they released in 1992 was the 16628. It was not an immediate success because people loved the Submariner so much, and the price difference between the Submariner and the Yacht-Master was quite a lot. It wasn't a huge success. It did okay. The Submariner was a much stronger selling watch for them, much more important watch in their collection. It was okay. Later on, they released a Rolesium version, which is a steel and platinum combination, which helped the Yacht-Master do a little bit better because that price point of the original Yacht-Master was so high because it was only available in yellow gold. The introduction of a steel and platinum version made it a bit more affordable and increased its popularity slightly. There was a few changes over the years to the Yacht-Master that helped with its popularity a little bit. The 2007 Yacht-Master 2 was a really important watch at the time, and that was Rolex recognizing the need and demand from clients across the world for a much larger case size watch, and that was a 44mm case size, much bigger than any of the other Yacht-Masters and Submariners that they produced in the line. Then moving on to 2015, we saw the release of the Yacht-Master 40 with the Oyster Flex rubber strap and in rose gold. That was the start of this kind of more sporty, luxurious feel that we now see on this model here also, which was released this year, Basel 2019, and that is the reference 226659, which is our Yacht-Master 42, only available at the moment in white gold. So briefly, this model features obviously a larger case size at 42mm. It features a new movement with an extended power reserve to 70 hours, 70-hour power reserve, and also a little bit more reliable in terms of timekeeping. It's +2 and -2 seconds per day. So slight improvements to movement, and obviously a brand new case and a brand new model for Rolex this year for this Yacht-Master 42. So that kind of concludes our history on this model. Let's take a look at the features on this watch and break it down and have a closer look. So we're going to start, as always, with our clasp on this watch. We've actually got quite a unique clasp for this piece. We've got a glide lock clasp, which is quite rare to have on these precious metal variants of the Yacht-Master. And the glide lock is a feature that they built for the Submariner originally, and the Sea Dweller also. The glide lock basically means you can adjust your clasp or the size of your watch, the bracelet of the watch, by smaller increments. Usually on their watches they only feature an easy link adjustment, which is +5 mm. Whereas this one you can really fine tune the size of the bracelet, which is extremely useful for people who want to wear this every single day. It was originally designed so that you could wear this watch over the top of a dive suit and then be able to take it off and make it smaller and wear it on your bare wrist without having to take out links like you would have had to do on original Submariners. So it's a really useful feature that people use every single day. On my Submariner, when I used to wear it on the bracelet, I used to use that feature every single day. You know, your wrist expands slightly in heat and contracts, so it's actually a really nice thing to make sure that bracelet always stays comfortable. One thing I will say about this is because it's an 18-karat white gold and it is quite large, being a glide lock clasp, it will probably scratch quite easily. 18-karat white gold is quite a soft metal, and the fact that it's a large clasp means it's going to be an even greater scratch magnet, and it's also in a polished finish as well, which means you're going to see those scratches nice and clear. Nonetheless, really nice clasp and super solid. Yeah, not too much to say about that. I love the Oyster clasps. Moving now on to our Oyster Flex rubber strap. The Oyster Flex straps are really cool. The Yacht-Master 40 was actually the first time we saw this Oyster Flex clasp or strap from Rolex altogether, from all models. It's a really nicely made rubber strap. One thing I really like about that Oyster Flex rubber straps is the little padding that they have inside the strap. Just next to the lugs, there's this kind of spongy bit of rubber that just allows the watch to sit gently on your wrist rather than pulling really hard and creating lines down the edge of your wrist where the edges of the rubber meet your wrist. So this helps with comfort massively, and it is an extremely comfortable rubber strap to wear. One thing I would say though is that the rubber B straps are slightly more comfortable out the box than these straps, and I find the quality level is similar between this and in the rubber B. I'd actually maybe say that the rubber B feels slightly nicer than this strap. One thing also that I don't love about the way that Rolex fits the Oyster Flex straps to their watches, specifically the Yacht-Master, is the way that there is a small gap between the case and the actual strap. I wish they did it like the rubber B straps are, where it actually closes up that gap and they fill in that whole lug area. I think that looks much smarter. On the Oyster Flex Daytonas, they actually have like an end link over the end of the lugs, and that helps to hide the edge of the strap and makes it look much more seamless. In a way, I wish they did kind of something similar to that on this watch too. Moving now onto our case, we've got a beautiful 18-karat white gold case that's in an all mirror polish finish. It looks absolutely fantastic, a really different look obviously to a Submariner that features brushed finish and polished finish. It also has those kind of more elegant flowing lines that the Yacht-Master is known for versus the Submariner lines, which are much more boxy, sharper edged. Yeah, it is much more elegant. Definitely, obviously, you can see it's a dive watch and it's got dive features on it, but it definitely feels much more of a sleeker, more classic, slightly more elegant case and therefore watch. Moving now onto our bezel. The bezel is actually one of my favorite features on this watch. It's a ceramic bezel, so Cerachrome bezel from Rolex, and it features a all satin or matte finish. And then raised up above are these numbers, or the numbers to tell your increments for your dive time, and they are in a polished finish, so they've actually polished the ceramic to a mirror finish, and it looks really cool. It's a definitely unique look. When you get it in the right light, it looks absolutely amazing. I love the fact that they've raised them up and polished them to create that real different texture and finish on this watch. So yeah, that's a really nice subtle look. You know, if you have it in certain light, it just looks like it's all like a matte finish. But when you get that little bit of sheen or a little bit of light on the ceramic, it looks really beautiful. One thing to note about the bezel as well that I forgot to mention is that it really does attract fingerprints and marks. Because it's in this satin matte finish, those fingerprints are quite hard to get rid of and they show up quite easily. So that can be something that's a little bit frustrating, unlike a Submariner bezel where it's all polished finished ceramic or a GMT Master, etc., etc. You can actually polish those fingerprints off, whereas the matte finish, it can be quite difficult to wipe them off. But yeah, overall cool bezel is probably one of my favorite features of this watch. Next, moving on to our dial, we've got a very, very simple, elegant, classic Submariner Yacht-Master style dial. Yeah, I mean, there's not too much to say about it. We've got kind of maxi markers. Everything is scaled up on this watch, obviously, because it's 42mm. That's something that you'll immediately notice when you see this watch in real life with the dial, that it looks so much bigger than all the other watches that you've seen from Rolex that look like this. You know, the case, obviously, the case, to be honest, doesn't look too massive. The dial really is what makes this watch look and feel much larger than any other model that they've produced. And on the dial, we've got our 18 karat markers, or 18 karat white gold markers, and our 18 karat white gold hands, and they're all set with lume as well. Yeah, nice, classic, elegant dial. Okay, so that concludes our features on this watch. On to whether or not I would own it and what I think about this watch. I think it's a really cool, interesting new release from Rolex. I think that I don't know how well it will do, but the price point of this watch is very high and it sells for over its list price. So it's quite an expensive timepiece for what you get. You know, it's a very simple watch, time-only watch, and it doesn't come on a bracelet either. You know, it's just on a rubber strap. Your white gold that you're getting is your clasp and your case, and that's it. So for the price point that this is selling at, it's actually very, very high and actually more expensive than some full white gold Submariners, or, you know, full white gold models from Rolex. So in that respect, you know, that will probably put a lot of people off this watch. But another thing also is it's extremely understated, which is a fantastic thing. It does look like just a standard dive watch. You know, the polished finish is not too much. It's not too in your face at all. It's very subtle. And so for that reason, it still has and maintains that more bulky sports style and kind of more under the radar sports style. So for people that are looking for something like real bang for their buck, you probably won't feel that this will give you that. The Yacht-Master 40 in rose gold is more likely to give you, you know, more bang for your buck. But for those that are looking for something unique, and well, this is definitely unique, you won't really see many of these around. Someone that's looking for something unique and understated that's really appropriate for almost any occasion, then this is a fantastic timepiece. I'd say that even though it's in white gold and is in polished finish, that rubber strap definitely makes it a little bit more sporty than most other watches. You know, you could probably find something a little bit more versatile and a little bit more elegant than this for the same price point. In terms of how it wears, it actually is not over-facing for 42mm case size. You know, Rolex is quite kind with their case sizes. They don't make them feel too large, usually because most other companies like Audemars Piguet, when they make a 42mm case size, it feels very large, and that's because they're putting big chrono pushers on there, you know, big case guards, etc., etc. Whereas Rolex generally makes sure that the watches are quite sleek and elegant and classic anyway. So the watch doesn't really wear like a 42mm case size, it wears kind of like a 41. It doesn't feel too large on the wrist. It actually suits my wrist quite well at 16.5 centimeters. I reckon it probably would suit a wrist size up to sort of 19 centimeters and maybe a wrist size down to 15 centimeters, depending on what sort of size of wrist or size of watch you like to wear, if you like to go for a larger size or a smaller size. So overall, would I own this watch? Probably not. This watch I probably would prefer to own the Yacht-Master 40 in the rose gold. My ultimate watch would be the Yacht-Master 40 in white gold. But if I was to look at an Oyster Flex watch, or, you know, watch at this price point in this similar design, I would personally look at the white gold Oyster Flex Daytona. That's one of my favorite watches that Rolex produces. It's just a great looking watch, and this watch shares some of the same features that watch has, you know, in terms of its black and white design, very understated, classic, clean design. But yeah, personally, I just prefer the Daytona. I think it looks a little bit more special. Thanks guys for watching. Let us know in the comments what you think about this Yacht-Master 42. Would you own it, or what other model would you own in the Rolex collection? And as always, if you're interested in this Yacht-Master 42 or any other watch in the Rolex collection or any other collection from a Swiss watch manufacturer, then don't hesitate to contact us. Our details are in the description and also at the end of the video. It'd be a pleasure to call that watch into stock for you.